managing director of Propel Capital and a managing partner of Propel Capital and managing director of Everything IoT and the moving force behind this conference for the last 3 years. Eitan Bienstock has been deeply involved in developing and promoting the Internet of Things in Australia. Please welcome Eitan to the stage.
Welcome, and thank you very much, Mr. Kin, for a wonderful, inspiring speech. Can I ask, just before we start, everybody just to get up for a second? Just get up. It's the first thing in the morning, so first of all, really appreciating you coming early. We're still expecting quite a lot of people. I'm sure they're going to join us soon, but thanks for doing that. I want to ask a few questions really quickly, just to understand who is here in the audience. We targeted to specific audience, and we want to see who is here. So who is here from corporate? Corporates, different kind of corporates. Great. So that's maybe half, or maybe a bit less than half. Who is here from startups, entrepreneurs? Almost as much. Okay. Government people? Yeah, great. Welcome. And the investors. Any investors in the rooms? A bunch of them as well. Great. So that's wonderful news. Please sit down. Exactly 49 years ago, on October 11, 1968, Apollo 7 was launched. It was the first manned Apollo mission with 3 astronauts on board. Under the command of Walter Schirra, they conducted 11-day orbit on Earth, during which they transmitted the first live television broadcast from space. 9 years ago, on October 11, 2008, a man set a new world speed record for blind drivers. Belgian Luc Kunsterman drove 192 miles per hour in a borrowed Lamborghini Gallardo on a long straight stretch of airspace near Marseille in France. Today, we are at the cusp of the biggest, if not the fastest, industrial revolution the world has ever seen. This is not an evolution. We had that in the past several decades. This is a revolution. A revolution that will affect every aspect of our lives. And frankly, as a human race, we have no other choice if we want to survive and continue to grow on this planet and beyond, if Elon Musk have his way. Think about it. In just a few years from now, visually impaired people will be able to drive. They will be able to move around using autonomous cars. How good is that? To me, the Internet of Things represent the embodiment of this revolution. IoT allows us to connect the physical world to the digital world, and together with other technologies like artificial intelligence and blockchain, it will improve our lives dramatically. In fact, what I'm most excited about is the social impact of IoT. If you've been to any of our events before, you've probably heard me talking about IoT being the impact of things. Just think about IoT, what IoT can do in areas such as food security, the environment, and the reduction of inequality and poverty in third world countries. In the Hack Lab last year, the winning team, the Iconic, came up with an ingenious solution to help visually impaired people use public transport. In fact, most of the teams chose social impact challenges to solve, and this will be no different this year. Make sure not to miss the Hack Lab finalists presenting later this afternoon. You'll be amazed to see what they have accomplished in just one weekend. This year, Transport for New South Wales has joined Commonwealth Bank as a main partner. Expect fascinating presentation and discussions on mobility, space, drones, robotics, and many more cutting-edge technologies and applications, not to mention Dr. Riley's session, demystifying quantum computing for us. Just imagine what quantum computing will do to accelerate the effect of IoT and artificial intelligence. Now, I know that I stand between you and the biggest, most exciting IoT summit in the Southern Hemisphere. How do I know that? Yes, please. So how do I know that? Just look at the caliber of speakers we have with us for the next 2 days. But before we kick off, I want to share with you my personal story and my plans for everything IoT. I have a confession to make. I consider myself a failed serial entrepreneur. While I started at the age of 7, washing neighbors' cars, selling old books, and operating lemonade stands, I never made it big. According to my mother, at some point, older kids came, drank my lemonade, and left without paying. I don't think that would happen now. Years later, and after spending 7 years in the Israeli Army computing unit and completing my university studies, I came up with a great idea to drastically reduce car accidents on Israeli roads. If you've been to Israel, you'll understand what I'm talking about. We are the worst drivers, and tailgating is a major problem. Every time you look at the rear mirror, you see an angry face with that look on their face. Get out of my way, you are too slow. Only if you've been to Israel, you know that. I was about to solve that problem once and for all. My idea was to create a radar-based device that would alert drivers when tailgating occurs. I had access to radar technology coming out of the military industries. I had a close friend in Detroit who was highly connected in the car industry, and I got an industrial engineer friend from school to join me on that venture. This was in the mid-90s, and if successful, it could have been the beginning of the mobility revolution that we are about to experience very soon. It didn't happen. To make things worse, 4 years later, Mobileye was founded in Israel and later became the world's leader autonomous car technology, in the autonomous car technologies. It was bought by Intel last year for a staggering $15 billion. You see, I had half a dozen great ideas I worked on, from YouTube-type video hosting service to a Netflix platform. Deep inside, I knew well ahead of everyone else that those things were going to be huge successes. But I didn't have the self-belief to follow all the way through. So to all the entrepreneurs, and there are about half of the room here, I want to say, as my son Daniel always say, and Winston Churchill used to say, never, ever, ever give up. In 1996, I succumbed to my mother's plea to get a real job. So I joined Intel in Israel. From working in my tiny apartment in Tel Aviv, trying to break through, I instantly found myself in the center of the global technology revolution. I was extremely lucky. Soon after I joined Intel, I built the Intel Israel Incubation Program to support Israeli high-tech companies in their quest to scale globally. In the first 3 years, we supported 24 companies, increased their revenues in $100 million, and successfully IPO'd one company on NASDAQ. Imagine that happening in Australia. I later moved to Intel US and led a strategic team to transform it's corporate IT. This was a $3 billion organization back in 1999. Our job was to transform it from a bureaucratic government-style organization to one that was more profitable, service-driven entity. That was, without doubt, the hardest thing I've ever asked to do. In 2000, I joined Intel Capital and as a strategic investment manager covering digital media, IPTV, smart home, and other technologies that were considered futuristic at the time. So what did I learn in my 6 years at Intel? Firstly, focus is key. Secondly, you must be in a massively growing market. And finally, you must develop a healthy culture. I moved here in end of 2001, following my Australian wife. With a lot of knowledge and energy, the first thing I did was to set up an investment group I called Sigma Ventures. The idea was to use the knowledge of the group to make better investment decision, and mentor early-stage tech companies. Well, that turned to be the wrong idea in the wrong place at the wrong time. That was 2001. While I loved the country and its people, I was taken aback by the attitude both of investors and entrepreneurs. 16 years ago, they said they knew it all. They lived in a somewhat self-imposed isolation and didn't want to know what they don't know. They had no willingness to open up and learn what was going on out there. After 2 years, I moved to New York, where I joined the world's largest travel and real estate company, and later joined a startup led by John Scully. Fast forward to 2014, I could clearly see that things in Australia are starting to change. So within 3 months, I sold my business and spent 3 years supporting the local tech ecosystem through my work in venture capital firms, technology incubators, and by investing in 6 startups. I have set up Everything IoT to turn Australia into a global IoT leader. As you can see, we have a very clear focus, a massively growing global market, and I'm determined to entice more global multinationals to Australia to help us grow our local ecosystem. Our mission is to propel IoT innovation. And we've begun the conversation with over 2,000 people attending 6 events over the last 3 years. We are also actively connecting corporate startups, universities, government, and investors. So I'm very happy to see that all those groups are represented here. We've published thought leadership content focusing on 4 key sectors and provided the global perspective needed by attracting to Australia world leaders from Israel, the US, and Asia. We were very fortunate to partner and get support from global and local corporate leaders, many of which are here today. But this is just the beginning. To make it to the next level and realize my vision to turn Australia into an IoT global leader, I'm delighted to announce the establishment of Everything IoT X. Everything IoT X will include an IoT hub with the primary goal of supporting startups in their effort to scale globally by providing mentorship and connection to global markets. A new IoT corporate fund to invest in IoT startups with global ambitions. And lastly, an IoT corporate transformation advisory practice to help corporates harness the strategic benefits from emerging technologies like IoT and artificial intelligence. This year, Everything IoT Global Leadership Summit theme is IoT in motion, from projections to implementations. We've succeeded in bringing diverse thought leaders from different countries, disciplines, and sectors. We will hear a lot of success stories and hopefully some lessons that have been learned along the way, so from now on, we would only make new mistakes. And as always, I encourage you to make sure you meet as many new people as possible. After all, we are not only about connecting things, we are also about connecting people. Finally, I would like to thank our generous partners without whom this event would not have been possible. Our main partners for 2017 are Commonwealth Bank and Transport for New South Wales. Thank you. Our platinum partners are Telstra, Microsoft, KPMG, and Amazon Web Services. And our gold partners are Alex Group and Timpani. I would like to especially thank Stuart Waite, who's done an amazing job running our hackathon this year and last year, and has been a great supporter and active involvement in all our events to date. Today, we are celebrating another important milestone, as in the last 3 years, and since its inception, Everything IoT Global Leadership Summit marks the opening of the Spark Festival. We've set up the Spark Festival to celebrate Australian innovation, to bring together the wide technology and innovation ecosystem in one events-packed week. The festival has been growing exponentially and features more than 100 events in Sydney, CBD, and Western Sydney, Newcastle, and New Armandale. I highly recommend taking a few minutes to review the magnificent program on sparkfestival.co. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time. I wish you the very best 2017 Everything IoT Global Leadership Summit. Thank you.